If you're wondering, if you're like, hey, I want to apply for a law firm, what does it take? People have a lot of misconceptions of what it is and what you're actually doing at a law firm. You don't have to absolutely crush yourself. Now we're just expecting you to really come up with new ideas, be creative, and be a really positive member of the team. The best thing that you can do is light movement. What does that mean? Think of anything you really enjoy doing. But really the people who are really in the zone are moving. Think of like a doctor when they're a surgeon. You get these doctors and like, wow, this doctor is amazing. What are they doing? Well, they're performing surgeries. What's performing surgery? It's very light movement. There's not a whole lot of strenuous activity going on. And it's like, wow, this person is a master surgeon. And then you have woodworking, welding, piano. I mean, anything that you have is like this very light movement. That's key. So if you're not doing that in your job, if you're just sitting in front of a screen, typing is light movement. But the thing is, you can't really type endlessly. Typing is communication. And it's very hard to just sit down and write a novel every single day. So typing is probably out. You need to do something more, building something, get a whiteboard out, get some content created, get a video camera out, make a video. I mean, it's like, just do some light movement, just create something. That's what a lot of these have in common. That is like the key, absolutely the key. I can just continue on the list here. I mean, if you think of gardening, people are like, wow, people who garden seem to be super healthy, mental health wise, and they just seem to do better in all areas of health. Well, yeah, because it's light movement. What you need to do to be productive, right? And light movement is the key. If it's really strenuous, if you go out and dig a ditch, okay, maybe we'll do bad examples. Exercise. It's too heavy. You're doing too much work, okay? I mean, you're doing too much. And there's a reason why exercise is like you do it for an hour. You don't exercise for 8 hours a day. You're working 8, 9, 10, whatever, how many hours you're working. We're doing negotiations, we're doing research, we're doing, we're really trying to find new arguments and all these things all the time. Those are the people that we need to have come in and improving what we got going on. I'm going to say another bad exercise real quick, a bad example. Digging ditches, okay? Obviously, that's not going to produce a lot for you if you're working so hard. Now, are you building your body up? You getting stronger? Yeah. This has got to be light. If you're really stressed out, if you're having arguments, if you're yelling at each other, it should be relaxing. It should be like going to a yoga studio. That's the kind of environment that we're in. And yoga is another good example. Light movement. I think it's like Tai Chi or something like that is another light movement situation, that you see a lot of elderly people doing because it's super good. It's light movement, no resistance, and they're just flowing. And it's good. It's good for your upstairs here. Okay. Gentle discipline is kind of the way to wrap it up. That's the way I would explain it. It's gentle. You got to be nice to yourself. Don't just burn it at both ends of the candle, okay? Just relax, okay? Let it come to you. It's not all going to happen in one day. It's just gentle, tiny increments. And that's where the discipline comes in. You can't take any days off. You got to continue. If you show up to work, make it a productive day. Get 1% better. If you get 1% better each day, then you're staying on course. You take a day off. You are just going a little bit off course. And then you're going a little bit off course. And then a little bit. And all of a sudden you're way over there. And you wanted to be there. This is the problem. This is the problem that people have. It's just the tiny, tiny tasks that just have to be done in order to maintain, right? It's like owning a dog. So you have a dog. What do you do with the dog? You got to wash the dog. You got to walk the dog. What is all these things? These are pretty light movement, right? Walking your dog, that's an excellent light movement situation. Washing the dog, hopefully, is not super challenging. Training your dog with, training with tricks, all this kind of thing with your dog. It's light movement. And that's why getting a dog is one of the best things you can do. They can produce a lot of light movement. In fact, they demand it. They demand light movement. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I feel so accomplished because my dog learned this trick. It makes you just like feel so good, which is kind of goofy, but it does. So gentle discipline is where it's at. You have to take a breath, step back, try to spruce up your environment, make it as nice of an environment as you possibly can. Because if you're not in the yoga studio, you're not doing yoga. If you're having these crazy things in your life where you've got the dogs barking and you got the dishes that need to get done and you got the groceries list that you need to get done and you got the party that you need to go to with your friends and you got all these things going on, you're toast. And that's where flow comes in, okay? And if you do this, you will enter a flow state. If you do this correctly, if you have gentle discipline while you're doing this, if you have a leisure, light activity, pastime, if you have a pastime, is another word for it, you will enter a flow state and you'll be like, what time is it? Where am I at? This is so much fun. You know, what happened to the day? It just flew by. And that's what you want to enter into, ideally, while you're working. It's really hard. Sometimes work, you just cannot enter a flow state. You have to work too hard, or it's too stressful, or it's too mundane. And try to do that. I think the best way to enter the flow state and to get through anything is to make it a game and to have fun, right? Games, like a game of chess, you could just be in the flow state. The whole game, pretty much. I mean, you could just be working your chess moves and all of a sudden the game's over. Fun, okay? Just are the two big ones. And it's kind of a weird thing because you won't even be aware that you're having fun. You'll just continue to do it. I recently played pickleball, and I heard depending on what sport you're playing, depends on how long you're going to live, and pickleball and racket sports. But these racket sports are the best, the longest lives for people who are playing these sports. And obviously, I mean, I'm playing pickleball and an hour goes by and it's like, what happened? I mean, I'm just like, just grooving, just flowing. You know, music can be a helpful way to get into flow. It's like light dancing and all that is like, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, it's over. You know, the dance is over because you were in this flow state. It's a whole thing. Now, if you're learning a choreography or you're on a cheerleading team, you're probably not going to get the flow state. You could, but not at first. And I think that that's another thing is, you know, expertise makes it much easier to enter the flow state. There's a reason why these 8-year-old kids are just ripping on the piano. They're just ripping. And the reason why they're ripping is because they are easily coming in and out of the flow state. They're able to sit down and just start flowing. And you probably shake them and they go, whoa, I didn't even know you're there. Because they're just so focused on what they're doing. They're just kind of lost in the music. They're lost in what they're doing because second nature, intuition, they're tapping into something and they're able to do that because they have experience. If you're just learning how to play the piano and you're just learning, good luck. I mean, it's going to be too challenging. You cannot do it. You're not in a performance mindset. You're in a learning mindset and your brain is trying a little bit too hard. So that's the difference. So expert cheerleader or somebody who's in a dance competition, when they're in the competition, it might just fly by. And I experienced this when I played sports. It was like practices, miserable. Hated it. You know, every second of it was like grueling and like, you know, just get me to the games. And then when you get to the games, it's like, wow, that game went by so fast. We're just flying by. And that's the difference. It's like you're in the flow state. You're not acting so much on, you know, logic. You're acting more on your instincts. That's one way to look at it. There you go. If you are an expert and you have an experience, it becomes much easier. If you put your 10,000 hours in, now you are flowing. Hard things become easy, right? You know, it's like, hard becomes easy. If you can do this. If you can't do it, you know, that's probably your issue. You just haven't got good enough at it. You just haven't spent enough time on it. You haven't been a gardener for 10 years. When you're a gardener for 10 years, gardening is a beautiful, relaxing, fun thing. But when you just start out gardening and you get down and you start weeding garden, it's a miserable thing. And so that's how you have to look at your job. You're going to be terrible at it. And I think that this whole culture of like 3 to 5 years is like the max anybody can stay at a position is a huge problem. I feel like I've been an attorney for 7 years and I'm just getting the flow. I'm just getting, not the hang of it, but it's like once you are an attorney for a certain amount of time, you have all these systems in place. And then once you get all the systems in place, now it's like, I can not only do all the work, but I can execute it perfectly. I can execute in a way that is, you know, exceeding even my own expectations. It's like, wow, that project went so smoothly because I had the discipline to just continually work on it and build my systems up and just to have it go through. And it's not like that all the time. Obviously, you can never run out of systems to do, especially as an attorney. It's continually a problem for you. You know, because the law changes and then you got to update your system, or you have something new come up that you've never experienced before. You got to add that to. It just continually comes up. It's not like welding where you're going to perfect your weld, or piano playing where you're going to perfect the piece that you're going to perform. It isn't like that. And maybe that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. But you really have to come up with a few things that are like that, or else you're just not going to be successful. It's just not going to work. So put systems in place for you from day one. Don't wait until 10 years or go by and you're like, okay, let's start making systems. Bad idea, because the systems are going to be what carries you through. The systems are going to be what allows you to get into the flow. Okay. It's just like when you play a sport, you have to learn the fundamentals. And when you have those fundamentals, you build those, and that turns into a system. If it's baseball, if you got to keep your elbow up, or you got to step forward towards the pitcher, or you got to wait on your back leg for a curveball. All of these things, you could do the exact opposite, but that wouldn't probably work for you. So you wouldn't want to put that in your system. And then by the 6th, 7th year of doing that, you're like, wow, I'm really good at this. I can repeat this over and over again. And when that pitcher throws, a fastball, away, I know to hit it to right field. It's just instinct. I don't have to think about it. So the systems that you put in place, do it as soon as possible. And I think people think of systems the wrong way. It's not automation. Okay. Automation could be part of your system, but the whole goal is not to automate it so you have essentially no friction. Now that's awesome if you can do it, but like for my experience, certain things you just can't do. For like a welder, you can't just you can't just have the machine weld for you. Now, 50 years from now, a computer might attach to your weld machine and tell you exactly what all the settings need to be, and exactly the temperature, and exactly the right material. And it's just completely automated for you. So you just pull the trigger. Good. But we're not there yet. I'm sure your job and your role is not going to be there yet. In fact, it might not have anything like that. So don't focus so much on the automation part of it. Focus more on the record keeping and keeping a system. And if automation plays a part in that, that's something you're going to have to do for sure. But it's not the whole part. That's not why I think people think that's why we're hiring employees, is to create automation so that they can work less, or, so that they can never make any mistakes. And that's a huge part about it, is how do you create the systems? You create the systems by making mistakes. You cannot create a system if you just do everything perfect and you take no risks and nothing ever bad happens. This is how you learn, right? And then you iterate the system. When you make a mistake, you go, oh, I don't want to do that again. I'm going to put this in my system so that doesn't happen again. And that's how you build out your system. So you have just a bare bones skeleton. I wouldn't even call it a system until you start, iterating, until you start making mistakes. And that's okay. And that's what makes it fun. It's like playing a video game. You're like, that first level, you are trying to learn how to jump and how to, go over obstacles. Well, the first 10 times, you're going to hit the obstacle every single time and fall off and, go into a pit and have to restart. And that's fine. That's how you learn. And then all of a sudden, you start doing it and you start jumping over obstacles and avoiding pits of doom. And it's fun at that point. But you have to get over this, mistake making. And then they start to gradually increase the challenge, and you start making more mistakes because they kind of force mistakes on you, and you continue to build your skill. And all of a sudden you're kind of running through the first levels, and then they increase the level. So video games are very kind of obvious how they do it, but it's really what you want to do with your career. Start small, start by jumping over obstacles, and then, down the road you can slay Bowser. And you're dealing with little mini monsters all over the place, and, it's just much more challenging. You don't want to start that off from the beginning and just leisurely going through it the whole way. So I think we are there. I think you're getting what I'm putting down with the systems. I cannot stress that enough. You have to be creating systems. And what is a system? Well, a system is just record keeping. Okay. You need to be able, and what kind of record keeping are we talking about? best thing you can do is record video, audio. Okay. The absolute best thing you can do is record yourself like this, literally doing the task. And then your supervisor or somebody can go back and they can do another video, audio, whatever it is, and critique it, pause it, critique. It's just amazing. The technology that we have now is so cool for that, especially if you have one of these jobs that is technology based. I mean, you could even, I'm thinking about it like even a welder, if they're out on a ship and they're welding on the side of a ship, they could literally have a GoPro and record it and show it and then send that video footage to their boss, and the boss could be like, critique it, be like, this looks really cool. I'm so glad that we had you record this because I have these new things for you to fix. And it's really, really important. So this coaching, this back and forth is phenomenal. It's asynchronous coaching where you're doing the task and then later they can go through and critique it. It doesn't have to be live. In fact, a lot of times live doesn't work as well because you are dealing with emotions and dealing with kind of body language communication, and the niceties and all that are maybe sometimes not necessary. And I think that that's really what people are looking for is when you're starting a new job is they want you to be personally and showing them and walking them through a system so that they don't make any mistakes. That's not what you want. That's really, really not what you want on any type of position. You want them to record them and making mistakes and doing this. You can be doing something else or helping them with more challenging things. It's like the video game thing where, hey, I'm telling you you're doing these mistakes and you're like, man, you're really nitpicking on these things. And it's like, yeah, but someday I'm not going to be nitpicking. I'm not going to be looking over your shoulder. I'm just going to be expecting you to do this. And then we're going to be going on to bigger and better things. So yeah, so this is probably the best. Video is the best. Video audio is the best. I put, SOPs or what everybody wants. It's like, I just want a guide. I just want to look at it. It's not going to do it for you. I mean, there's too many variables, too many, inconsistencies from case to case for you to just build an SOP. If it's a simple thing and, you can do it in 10 steps or 5 steps, you might not even need an SOP. But then you can do it. But the issue is we're talking about cases that are like, branches, decision trees that just go on forever and ever and ever, and then you have, this decision tree of where the client wants you to do let's say a probate, but they're having a contested probate or uncontested probate with maybe we're going down here and it's like they have a will, maybe they don't have a will, maybe they have, a solvent estate, maybe they don't have a solvent estate, maybe they have, non-intervention powers, maybe they have intervention powers. And it's just like this crazy, okay, so now we're going to have the SOP travel, and it's like, go through it. Now you can do like a flow chart, maybe. You can maybe do this, but then to explain every step along the way, good luck. I mean, it's just going to be too challenging for an SOP versus like, hey, this is how you do a name change, right? You're going to fill out the form, and then you're going to go to the courthouse, then you're going to go to this. And so you can do an SOP for that. But you're not going to be able to do an SOP for most things. I mean, it just isn't going to work. You're going to need to do this kind of coaching. And that's really the best part. There's so much context that you're going to lose in an SOP versus doing a video, even a seminar or like a webinar where you're like going through and step by step telling somebody how to do it. It's going to be much better. And I guess what's in between that, maybe live. Right? If you're live and you're in person, you're helping them out. The issue is there's so much you're going to miss when it's live versus if you are taken back. It's kind of funny because it's like flow. If you're doing this video audio, you're going to be in flow. If it's live, it's going to be too challenging because you're going to have too much going on. I think communication, you can enter into flow with communication, but it's not very common because I feel like human beings, we have so much, it's like an ego, right? Where it's like, I don't really know if I want to trust enough to really, enter into this experience. Maybe that's why, I don't know, people do other types of things, substances, alcohol, whatever it is. Maybe enter this flow state. I mean, it strips down that ego, makes you less judgmental. You're just going to say, well, anything. Sometimes asynchronous communication, it's going to be huge for you. If you can get everyone to buy in, it's like unstoppable. It's something that has never happened in human history, where we've been able to do this kind of record keeping back and forth and iterating. And all of a sudden, boom, we're able to do it. We're able to do it with Zoom or whatever kind of meeting software that you have. It's like you record what you're doing, I record, whatever you're using to record it. I know there's software, it's like Loom is one option, applications like that where it's like, you're literally recording what you're doing while you're doing it. So good. I mean, it's just phenomenal. It's the equivalent. It's probably the first step of like, this medical student is doing their little thing, working on their board of, let's say this is how you do stitches or whatever. And they're recording it and they send it to their professor, and their professor is like, wow, looks at it. It's like, this is what you could do better. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that we did this video recording because you've got these issues that we can fix. And otherwise you'd have to show up to the professor's office. Who knows if the professor has time? Who knows if the professor is, in the mood, or really, wanting to investigate what you really have issues with. Maybe they just want to give you kind of some general guidance or some general encouragement, which that happened to me in college. It's like I show up to the professor's office and they're like, no, are you sure you're eating right? Are you sure you get enough sunlight? Are you sure that you're taking care? It's like, no, I just want you to help me with this. And they're like, I don't have unlimited time to help you. You can go to the tutor. I'm like, I went to the tutor and the tutor had no idea what they were doing. So I'm just saying it's going to be a lot better. I had a different class in college where it was like one day he would pretty much give us the answers. I mean, he would just go through and lecture, but the lecture was just explaining how, I think it was logic. I think the class was logic, how the logic worked. And then the second day we would do this. And because you've had this experience, you were really ready to roll on day 2. And it was just a very succinct thing. Well, imagine doing that in any time of the day. You don't have to show up to class to do it. Your professor or your boss can just sit down and look and be like, hey, I'm going to, do a recording. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but maybe I'll draw a little camera, of your professor, right? And they're lecturing you about something, whatever it is. And you're like, before long, you do that a couple times and dang, there's not a whole lot of things you won't be really good at. If you're having concerns, if you're like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I've been doing this job and I've been running into these issues. Think about it. Are you doing too much? Because it's a very good possibility you are. And if you're doing too much, how are you ever going to really kind of tap into who you are and what you're about and what your values are? You're not gonna. You're gonna be so focused on, getting the next task done or getting the next gold star. And that's really not where we're at. I think it was Jeff Bezos who's like, hey, my leaders, the people who are the, CEO, CFO, in the C-suite, they are in a position where they're making 1 or 2 big decisions a quarter, or a few big, every, biannually they're making a few big decisions. And that's what you want, right? That's really what of course they're working and they're doing little things here and there. But the real momentum shifters, the sea change decisions, they don't really come up that much. And so if you were so stressed out that each little task is this big sea change for you, good luck. I mean, it's not going to probably work out like you expect. And that's, I think, why people are so probably fed up. They're so frustrated. It's like they want it all at once. And you can't have it all at once. You're not just going to wake up and it's going to click. It's just not. It's going to be a slow friendship that you're going to have with your work. And hopefully you treat yourself like that, with empathy and understanding that you're just a person. I mean, you're not going to just click and have it. I mean, you might, and that's called hitting the lottery. You might hit the lottery and it's just all smooth. Hasn't happened for me yet. It really has been every step of the way. You're just gently kind of pushing this along in the right direction and never turning your back on it. Never just giving up and just saying, hey, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. You don't know what your work and how it's going to lead to something different down the road. right? It could have triggered something, butterfly effect situation where you're like, boom, now I've got something way better than I could have ever expected. And that happens all the time. You just can't give up. You really have to make them turn you away. If you're in school and your attitude is, hey, I'm going to work on this and I'm just going to keep going and they're going to have to literally fail me out of here, you're going to do it. I mean, you're going to persevere. And that's what I want for you. I really do. I want every employee that comes into my purview or anybody that's working out there to just know that they can do it. It just is going to take a long time to do it, unfortunately. It's not going to be a quick thing. And I think recently somebody say, hey, what I expect from my employees is for them to just learn the job. Just learn as much as you possibly can. And I think that's a bad attitude. I mean, I wouldn't say that. I think it's do as much as you can. Try as many things out as possible. Work off of, some of the lower risk, but, higher rewarding things. And obviously, I mean, that sounds obvious, but if your boss gives you a project, dive into it. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, right? Give us your best thing and then explain your piece of it. Don't argue, don't argue when your boss tells you actually that's not the right way to do it, but do explain why you did it. And maybe that is going to explain to your boss why you made any mistakes that you did or what your thought process was on getting to this outcome. And maybe that leads it's amazing to me. Sometimes I just sit there and I think, how is it possible that they came up with this? I could have never have came up with this. It blows my mind. It was so ingenious. It was so intuitive. Where did this come from? They act like they have no idea what's going on. They got no confidence or whatever, but then they come with something that I'm like, holy, hit the brakes. What did you just say? How did you think of that? And you're just like, whoa. And that makes all the difference for what, the next project or the next phase of the development. It totally shifts the wheel to something that we would have never done if it wasn't for this new employee or this new person who's come in and has new, creative juices flowing or whatever. So there's something to definitely, you have to, come in with your eyes open, your heart open as an employer. You can't be expecting them to be a clone of you immediately, but you got to know that's eventually the ultimate goal, right? If you bring somebody on, you're going to want them to meld into your system. Personality wise, they can have their own personalities, but there's only certain ways you can do the system. So if they're not doing the system, you're going to have to let them go. If they're not building and growing into your system or building their own system so that they can make this happen, you're going to have to make a quick decision to let them leave. That's going to be a hard thing to do because you're going to want to, you're all this time, but it's going to probably be clear. Is this a person who wants to gently do this, who's going to have the discipline and the integrity and the responsibility to carry out what they need to carry out? Or is this a person who's going to be the next superstar? We don't really need superstars, right? We need team members. And I think that's the thing is people come in and I think they act like they're contractors or specialists. We brought you in to do this one certain thing. And no, we did not do that. We brought you in to be part of a team. And we have these certain things on the team that we do. Do you want to be a part of it or not? Sometimes people do. People are like, hey, I want to do this. And sometimes people go, you're wasting my talent. I am the best researcher that's ever lived. If you want to see more videos like this one or from Lawyer Cliff, go ahead and click the video right over my shoulder and True Crime continues.